All right, so today we're diving into the life of a man who was, equal parts warrior, scholar, and priest. A true architect of faith at a time when Europe was literally being torn apart. His name was František Forgách, and his story, well, it really shows how power, belief, and just plain personal conviction could shape the destiny of entire nations.
But here's the thing. To really get the man, you first have to understand the legend his family was built on. And it all starts with this simple, almost unbelievable question. How on earth did a single horse save a kingdom and launch a dynasty that would last for 8 centuries? The answer? It lies deep in the roots of the Forgách family tree.
So let's talk about the Forgách family. They weren't just some other noble house. We're talking about one of the oldest and most powerful families in the entire Kingdom of Hungary. Their lineage stretched way back, almost to the dawn of the second millennium.
Okay, so zoom in on the year 1241. You've got the catastrophic Battle of Slana. The Tatar invasion is about to completely shatter the kingdom. King Bela IV is surrounded. His capture looks certain. Then, at that absolutely critical moment, 2 Forgách brothers, Andris and Tomáš, give the king a fresh horse, letting him escape. That one act of loyalty, it became the very bedrock of their family's power, earning them land, titles, and a reputation that would last for centuries.
It was into this powerful, legendary family that František Forgách was born, right around the year 1560. So you can imagine, he didn't just inherit a name, he inherited a legacy of influence in a world that was teetering right on the edge of massive religious change.
So yeah, he was born into power, for sure. But his path wasn't ultimately defined by his family's swords and shields. No, it was defined by a single, life-altering choice he made when he was just a kid.
You see, František was actually born into the Lutheran faith, which was pretty common for nobles back then. But his uncle was a powerful Catholic bishop, and under his guidance, František converted when he was still a young boy. And that one decision, it basically rerouted his entire life, away from the battlefield, away from the royal court, and straight into the very heart of the church.
So, this new path of his took him to the absolute epicenter of the Catholic world, Rome. And this wasn't just about getting an education. It was a journey that would arm him with some serious intellectual tools, and a very powerful symbol of faith.
In Rome, he was just immersed in this intense Jesuit theology, studying under brilliant minds like Robert Bellarmine. He was so drawn to their discipline, both intellectual and spiritual, that he actually thought about joining the order himself. But when he finally did come home, he didn't just bring back ideas. He brought back something you could actually touch.
He brought back a copy of a sacred icon of the Virgin Mary and placed it in a church back in his homeland of Trnava. Now get this, years later, this very icon, the Trnava Madonna, would become legendary. It was credited with miracles, even stopping a devastating plague. So, his private act of devotion ended up becoming this lasting public symbol of hope for everyone.
Okay, so with his faith totally solidified and his mind sharpened, Forgách returned home to begin one of the most remarkable and, frankly, rapid careers in the history of the church in that whole region.
His rise was just meteoric. It was like a rocket ship. In just over 2 decades, he goes from a junior canon to bishop, then to royal chancellor, which is a huge deal, a key advisor to the king. And then, finally, in 1607, he hits the absolute pinnacle, Archbishop of Esztergom, the highest religious office in the kingdom. And then, Cardinal. This wasn't just a career, it was a straight-up ascent to power.
So you have to ask, why so fast? Well, because Forgách wasn't just some administrator. He was a leader with a crystal-clear mission. He became a central figure in what we call the Counter-Reformation, the Catholic Church's massive effort to re-energize its faith and push back against the wave of Protestantism that was sweeping across Europe.
And he was incredibly strategic about it too. He knew he couldn't do it all by himself. So he brought the Jesuits back, using their passion for education and missionary work. He teamed up with the brilliant thinker Péter Pázmány. He got the church organized by calling a major synod. And he was always thinking about the future, donating a monastery to set up a Jesuit college. He wasn't just playing defense, he was building an institution.
So what did all this work add up to? What's the lasting legacy of Cardinal Forgách? Well, it's a legacy that's written in both faith and in stone.
Forgách died in 1615. He was buried in Trnava, the very city where he'd placed that miraculous icon all those years ago. But his death really wasn't the end. The institutions he built, like that Jesuit college, and the structures he put in place, they made sure his mission to strengthen the Catholic faith would carry on for generations.
So his spiritual legacy was secure. But the story of the Forgách dynasty, the one that kicked off with a horse saving a king, well, it had one more magnificent chapter to reveal, a physical monument to their centuries of power.
And here it is. This is the Halič Palace. It was actually built by František's own father. This incredible residence stood as the family's seat of power for almost 400 years. It stayed in Forgách hands all the way until 1948. It's just this stunning physical proof of the endurance of a dynasty, a story that Cardinal Forgách was a huge part of.
Which, it leaves you with a final thought. When we look at the grand castles of Europe, we just see stone and architecture, right? But as we've seen today, inside every single wall there's a story of faith, of loyalty, of ambition. It really makes you wonder, how many other incredible stories, just like Cardinal Forgáč's, are just hiding in plain sight, waiting to be told?